have just come from the belly of the beast. I know exactly what I am talking about. And if this legislation passes in the next 10 days, if the voters of Milwaukee County are given a chance to vote on it as a referendum, it will be in no small part due to Joe Sanfilippo, who I am honored to introduce to you.
Thank you very much, and we're running a little long on our schedule, so I'm going to be extremely brief, because I don't think I need to explain to anybody here in great detail why we need to get some reform done. I'll just say two quick stories about that. Anybody familiar with the Park East Freeway land? Yeah. That was torn down over a decade ago, and it is sitting bare today yet, even though downtown Milwaukee has gone through one of the biggest building booms that this area has seen in decades. And that's very telling. And up at our assembly hearing last month, we had Rich Musin, who's the chairman of Badger Meter, came and he spoke, and he said he has a lot of friends in the development business, and he does some development himself. In the county board, there are so many obstacles to build in that land. That's why we have that land bare today, because nobody just wants to get involved. And so we're hurting economic development and job growth by having a dysfunctional board. And the problems that we have with the board is that they just don't quite know exactly where their role is in county government. And a lot of that is some of the state statutes are not very clear. You know, when the legislature created the office of county executive, they gave the county executive powers that up until that point the county board exercised. And so what they never did is reconcile the powers between the county board and the county executive. So that's the first thing this bill is going to do, is we're going to reconcile those powers, something that the state should have done properly back in 1960, but they didn't. And only the state can do this because they're state statutes. So we hear a lot from the opposition that the state has no business getting involved in Milwaukee County. That's not true, because first of all, the Constitution of this state gives the legislature the authority to create the counties and to empower them with whatever powers they see fit. So we're going to fix those statutes. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make these positions more accountable. Milwaukee County is the only county where county supervisors have 4-year terms. Every other county in the state, the supervisors are elected to 2-year terms. So I think by going back to 2-year terms, we're going to have the position more accountable to you, the voters. So that's the next thing the bill is going to do. The bill also is going to put a cap on the budget that the county board can spend on itself. We spend $6.5 million just on the county board budget. And some of the supervisors who are opposed to this reform say, well, that's because Milwaukee County is the biggest county and the most diverse county. We have to spend more. But if we take a look at what we're spending in Milwaukee County and we compare that to Dane, Waukesha, Racine, and Kenosha counties, they represent 30% more people than we do here in Milwaukee County, but they do it for 43% of the money, and they do it with 73% less staff. So we know that our county board is bloated and overspending. In fact, the $6.5 million figure that the board spends on its own budget, that's more money than any other county in this state gets in state shared revenue to help run their county. I mean, that's just an amazing fact when you think about that. You know, the state gives aid to municipalities. Milwaukee County spends more running their own budget than any county gets from state shared revenue. And we also get this year $51 million in state shared revenue for Milwaukee County, and that's more than the next 14 biggest counties combined. So we reconcile the powers. We make the position more accountable. We're going to save $4 million a year on the county board budget underneath this bill. By putting the cap on the amount of money that the board can spend on itself, we're going to bring that spending more in line with every other county. We're saving $4 million. And then the final thing we're going to do is we're going to take the representation, and that's the part that affects you and every other Milwaukee County resident the most, your level of representation. And we're going to let you decide if you think you need a full-time board or if you think that you can have a part-time board like we had in the first 20 years here. And this is something, as Charlie had mentioned before, you know, Joe Rice worked tirelessly on this countywide referendum so that people could have an advisory referendum at that point. And the county board fought us every step of the way. And so, once again, they're criticizing me in Madison, saying that I'm thwarting the local control here by trying to get something done in Madison. But you'll notice the resolution that they passed doesn't have a referendum in it. So they still, even in their own reforms, they still don't want to know what you have to say. They don't want to be held accountable to the people who are paying the bills. So we're going to give you the opportunity to vote in a referendum. And in the end, maybe the referendum doesn't pass. I don't know. I think it will, but maybe it doesn't. But you're going to decide that. So if your level of representation changes, it's not going to be something that is done by any legislator in Madison. It's going to be done directly by you.
Can we vote on your salary too?
Sure. So where we end up then, in the end, is we're going to have a county government that is going to be operating with the consent of the governed, rather than at the pleasure of the politicians. And that's the way it should be. So thank you very much for coming. All of you here tonight have a very important role. At this point, I've done everything that I can. I've talked to every legislator numerous times. We're getting things going. Right now, this is all in your hands. The county board has been working very hard to try to tell legislators of Madison that you really don't want any control or any change done in Madison, that you want this all to be done on local level. I think we know that it's not going to be done on a local level. I want to thank Charlie and Chris and Orv for getting the band back together, because this is a reform movement that started more than 10 years ago, and people have waited patiently for these reforms to take root. And what we're starting here now today, we're going to have our vote in the Assembly on Wednesday, and this is the first step to the final step, of finally getting these reforms done.
Yes.